I'm going to give you a few moments to ponder what is your favorite animal, or if you were an animal in the animal world, what animal would you be? Now, when I ponder that question, or if I'm asked, I think of a grizzly bear. Now, one time I was on a hiking trail where four of us were hiking and we actually encountered a grizzly bear. Now, thanks be to God, this grizzly bear acted more like a lamb than what you might expect from a grizzly bear. He just kind of circled around us, went down a little bit of a hill, came back up, was smelling for us, and then went up the side of the mountain. When we think of God, this God who creates everything out of nothing, we think of power, we think of a grizzly bear, we think of a lion. But yet, John the Baptist identifies Jesus as the Lamb of God. And so, of course, we can think of the Passover lamb, that Jesus, through his death and resurrection, protects us from death. We have resurrected life in the here and now and in the life to come. What a blessing that is, so we can dispense any fear that we have in life, ultimately. And then we can also think of, in the prophet Jeremiah and the prophet Isaiah speak about the lamb led to the slaughter. Obviously, this points to Jesus as he goes to the cross. Now, the beautiful thing when Jesus goes to the cross and is on the cross is he does act like a lamb, innocent, humble. And yet in this, there's the great revelation of God's love. And of course, then, Jesus takes away the sin of the world because God is love, and God, in God's love, it's an agape love where there are no conditions. So of course God is willing to forgive. One of the things I always ponder, though, is Jesus, when he's healing people, is also forgiving their sins. But on the cross, he actually has to ask the Father to forgive through him to the people who are putting him to death. The action of the Trinity. And the action of the Trinity is present with each and every one of us. And so, there's times where, maybe we have a struggle with a certain person, or maybe we have a situation that's a struggle, and we can always call upon God to help us to be present with us. But also, a lamb was an animal of victory. It seems a little bizarre, but we know that the Lamb of God is victorious, ultimately, as I've already mentioned, through resurrection. Now, the interesting thing is John identifies Jesus as the Son of God. Now, where does this come from? Is because twice in our gospel reading, the Spirit remains with Jesus. In the Old Testament, the Spirit would come and go. Now, if we think about it, for us who are sinners, but we're not just sinners, so, we're so much more than that. The Spirit kind of acts in us and through us, and then other moments not so well. But with Jesus, the Spirit remains with him. The sinless one has the Spirit that remains with him. And that's why he's able to do what he's able to do. That's why when he speaks of the fullness of Christ. And Jesus has come to serve and not to be served, which identifies him as the suffering servant in our first reading. The servant who will restore not only the household of Israel, but will also extend the mission to all of humanity. God is present everywhere. And so we're in this constant union with God. But also we have experiences of God where we're awakened to God's presence. But then also there are times when we're going through difficulties, and yet there's a peace within us that's not given by the world because of our life situation, but it's given by God, that we can persevere because we know that God is present with us. If God is present during crucifixion, then God is certainly present through our challenges in life. And God, as the second reading points out, offers us grace. Offers us gift after gift after gift. And what a blessing it is. And this is where our peace comes from, is knowing that our God has come to bring salvation. Our God has come to be united with us. Our God constantly, over and over, is coming to us, is awakening us to God's presence. And so as we gather around the table, Lord, Once again, behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. Blessed are those called to the supper of the Lamb. The victorious Lamb, the Lamb who is innocent, the one who showed mercy and tenderness as our good shepherd, so that we can receive what we need and we can give that away to others.